Now we are going to the north, which also represents the superego, air, and wisdom. And the season is winter. The Cherokee animal, we have the wolf. Choctaw animal, we have the deer. We have Archangel Uriel, lamp of illumination, and the black dragon of the north. Winter represents reflection and refinement, the cold clarity of wisdom earned through experience. It is a season of spirit and truth where the mind becomes still enough to listen. Here, the superego matures into discernment. Excuse me. The superego matures into discernment, doing what is right, not what is easy. It is the breath of the ancestors, the law of harmony, the discipline that sustains life. Psychological meaning, higher awareness, ethical growth, spiritual responsibility. Spiritual lesson, quiet strength, humility, listening before acting. And also this is, the polarity is feminine. Cherokee Choctaw teaching. The north is the direction of the elders, where wisdom is passed through silence and endurance. Winter teaches that truth is born in stillness. The cold air clears the mind and the spirit remembers. So air is the breath of understanding, the intellect purified into insight. It brings detachment without coldness, judgment transformed into discernment. Here the voice of conscience becomes the whisper of spirit. When air is harsh, it divides. When balanced, it connects, weaving logic, intuition, and ethics into wisdom. I breathe truth and exhale peace. My words are carried by the wind of compassion. Psychological aspect, superego, morality, ethical awareness, and spiritual law. Spiritual lesson, speak truth with love, let thought become prayer. Integrating the superego, air element, the spirit of integrity. The superego is the air that shapes the voice of conscious, the breath that rises between instinct and spirit. It is a part of mind that asks not what feels good, but what is right. When unhealed, it becomes the inner judge. When balanced, it becomes the higher guide, turning morality into wisdom and discipline into grace. The superego is the bridge between human personality and divine intention, the breath that carries awareness from self to soul. It teaches that freedom is not the absence of rules, but harmony with natural law. When I breathe through spirit, my conscience becomes compassion, and my discipline becomes grace. Integrating the individual superego, the air element, the spirit of integrity. The superego is the sky of the psyche, the mind that seeks meaning, the moral compass shaped by family, culture, and spirit. It is the voice that whispers what is right, yet often mistakes fear for virtue. When unhealed, it becomes the critic, the mask we wear to be accepted, the perfection that hides pain. When integrated, it becomes a guardian of integrity, conscious, guided not by judgment, but by wisdom. This is the realm of the ascendant, the rising light through which your soul greets the world. It is both the face you show and the bridge to your higher self. As the superego evolves, the mask becomes transparent. Your personality turns from armor into radiance. True transcendence is not denial of the self, but doing what is right even when it is not easy. Choosing meaning over comfort and truth over illusion. When I breathe through the air of spirit, my conscience becomes compassion and my discipline becomes grace. The collective superego, the breath of the higher law. The collective superego is the moral atmosphere of humanity. the shared sky of conscious that evolves as the species matures. Here dwell the great archetypes of virtue: justice, mercy, wisdom, and truth. It is a realm where spiritual law replaces social law, where morality becomes alignment with cosmic order. To align with the collective superego is to hear the same divine breath that guided the prophets, philosophers, and visionaries, the inner knowing that compassion sustains creation. When enough hearts awaken to this breath, the air itself becomes cleaner, a collective purification of thought and spirit. I breathe with a world's soul. My choices are prayers shaping the wind. The collective unconscious holds the myths that shape us. The collective subconscious holds the emotions that sustain them. Myth and collective superego, the breath that becomes law. Myth is the language of the unconscious, rising towards consciousness. It begins in the depths of the collective unconscious as raw archetypal pattern, then takes emotional form in the collective subconscious, and finally becomes ethical air in the collective superego. It's the way spirit teaches through story. Myths are humanity's early attempts to remember the cosmic order before we could articulate it as philosophy or science. They are maps of moral gravity, showing how actions align or volatile or violate the deeper harmony of creation. Myth as a bridge between the depths and the heights. So we have the layer of the collective unconscious, the birthplace of archetypes, universal patterns like hero, mother, trickster, and shadow, expression, pure potential, timeless story code. The collective subconscious, we have emotional dramatization, myths become charged with feeling and fear. Cultural legends, folk tales, and inherited moods. And then we have the collective superego. Translation into wisdom and moral law, philosophy, religion, ethics, and higher consciousness. So the ego, we have the east, subconscious is the south, unconscious is the west, and the superego is the north, and that is individually and collectively. The myth is found in the collective superego. So myth climbs the same ladder that consciousness does. At the bottom, it's instinctual, survival stories, creation dramas, and power struggles. At the top, it becomes sacred law, compassion, balance, the great peace. So when humanity matures, it doesn't abandon myth. It refines it. The gods evolve into principles. The stories become breath. When the myth awakens, it turns into moral vision. The collective superego as the breath of myth made conscious. The collective superego is where the moral essence of myth crystallizes into a shared conscious. It's the breath of justice, mercy, wisdom, and truth. Those same archetypes that once walked as gods or heroes now live as principles of righteousness and compassion. This layer carries humanity's evolving sense of justice from tribal vengeance to restorative balance, our expanding empathy from kin to species to all sentient life, the synthesis of ancient mythic truths into universal ethics. As the collective superego expands, myth is reinterpreted not as literal event, but as ethical compass. Where once the storm God punished, now the storm symbolizes purification. Where once the hero slew the dragon, now the dragon becomes the shadow integrated. Myth becomes the breath of discernment, the way spirit keeps teaching us how to live in harmony. Myth as moral atmosphere. Every civilization breathes its myths. They define what a culture reveres or fears. When myth decay, societies lose coherence. When myths are reborn as wisdom, societies ascend. For example, the Promethean myth evolves from rebellion to innovation balanced with responsibility. The Mother Earth myth transforms from fertility cult to ecological stewardship. The hero's journey matures from conquest to integration and service. The collective superego is the atmosphere of these renewed myths, the point where story becomes conscious, and conscious becomes evolution. The air of earth is filled with stories made sacred by understanding. Integration, the living Mandala of myth. So the collective unconscious gives birth to pattern. The collective subconscious gives it emotion. The collective conscious gives it form and society. The collective superego gives it meaning and morality. The collective supra-conscious ether breathes it back to source as wisdom. When this cycle completes, humanity no longer lives inside its myths. It co-creates them consciously. Every thought becomes a new verse in the sacred narrative of evolution. The myth is the breath of the world remembering itself. The collective unconscious holds the myths that shape us. The collective subconscious holds the emotions that sustain them. The collective superego exhales their truth as law. And through the breath of the divine mind, these stories become the atmosphere of an awakened world. So the Cherokee teaching in the north, we have the wolf of law and loyalty. For the Cherokee, wolf is the emblem of family, discipline, and spiritual law. It represents the strength of the clan, the loyalty of the heart, and the necessity of right action. Wolves teach that every voice in the pack matters. Unity through respect. To follow wolf medicine is to live by honor and keep your word as sacred. Choctaw teaching the deer of grace. Deer is gentleness embodied. It walks quietly, senses danger before it comes, and moves in balance with all of life. Its medicine is grace, kindness, and endurance. The Choctaw saw deer as a messenger between worlds, carrying prayers on silent hooves. Together, wolf and deer balance law with love, the masculine's responsibility with the feminine's grace. They remind us that true wisdom is gentle power. Archangel Uriel, light of wisdom and divine order. Uriel holds the golden lantern of insight that reveals the path in darkness. He governs intellect, memory, and prophecy, translating divine pattern into human understanding. To the masculine, he brings humility, wisdom that listens. To the feminine, he brings structure, clarity that steadies compassion. Uriel's air clears confusion, teaching discernment without condemnation. Uriel, lamp of the north, illuminate the mind with humility, that knowledge become kindness and law become love. The dragon teaching, the black dragon of the north. The black dragon is the oldest and most mysterious of the four dragons. It governs air and spirit. Though it is depicted as a serpent entwined with a turtle, symbolizing stability within change. The black dragon guards the gates of the north, where wind carries the songs of the ancestors. Its medicine is endurance, patience, and stillness that burrs insight. It is the wise elder who watches without judgment, embodying both serpent's wisdom and turtle's peace. Integration of the superego, air. The superego governs ethics, higher order, and spiritual memory. When unhealed, it becomes judgmental or rigid. When balanced, it becomes discernment guided by grace. Masculine feminine structure or spectrum. Toxic masculine, arrogance, cold morality, and perfectionism. Toxic feminine, confusion, avoidance, and spiritual bypassing. Integrated air, wisdom with compassion, truth spoken through love. Black dragon of the north, wolf and deer, teach me the breath of integrity. Let my words be honest, my silence wise, and my spirit steady as the mountain wind. At the stillness of winter, I walk with wisdom and ancestral strength. And now we're going to move into the center, the sacred fire, spirit, and integration. We have the Archangel Metatron and the yellow dragon. In mine, I have the Ouroboros, and the Native American, we have the sacred